All right, I got 4 o'clock. Appreciate everybody joining us. Hopefully you kind of hear all right. We'll go ahead and get started. Call the meeting to order. First order of business, presentation of minutes. We've got 2 minutes. We have the regular board meeting June 7th and then special board meeting on June 22nd. We'll take them one at a time. The draft minutes have been provided. Any feedback, corrections, changes? I'll take a motion to approve. So moved. Second. All right. This is for the June 7th board meeting. Budget second, comments, questions? All in favor? All right. June 22nd, special board meeting. Any questions or anything? I'll take a motion to make it. Motion second. Further comments? Questions? Not? All in favor? All right. And now, member comments. So we'll open the floor for comments, and we got 2 minute time on it, please. So just raise your hand. We'll, yes, sir.
I have questions about, obviously about the water. On 29th, I sent an email that told us about what was going on and asking us to restrict ourselves along with the alert that we had. But in the email, it said that we will update daily by text alerts, email alerts, and on the website, as well as keep you informed on usage and updates as when irrigation can be used. I signed up for text alerts and email alerts, and I looked at the website, and I haven't seen anything about the daily usage. I don't know, if water's fixing to get cut off like it was last summer, or where we are on that. So I have questions about that. So I'm concerned about not only future plans, but what we're going to do about the immediate plans about what we can do to take care of our water needs.
Yeah, I have some questions more than comments. First one, simple. I've been used to dropping my payment in the Dropbox on 205. Is there a new Dropbox since McLendon-Chisholm has taken it over? Do I have to go down to City Hall or what? Okay. Secondly, I hope somebody will be able to tell us what the relationship is now between RCH and McLendon-Chisholm. Is McLendon-Chisholm, and why isn't this meeting being held in City Hall if McLendon-Chisholm runs it? I mean, who runs RCH now exactly? Okay, and going back to water usage, I've not really seen anything on the news about drought in northern Texas. I mean, it's minimal, and some of the lake levels have dropped. I think the last one I heard, Ray Hubbard was about 6 inches below, and the other lakes were in that vicinity. So why are we on these water restrictions? And I think they're pretty severe. We're now limited to hand watering, if I understood the alert that's on your website as of last week. And the other thing I would mention, that alert was rather confusing. If somebody is writing those alerts, they need to be clearly stated, because that one wasn't. Sorry.
I've got a couple of questions as well. One, I know we're going through a billing process change. I haven't received a bill in several months, requested that. And two, as a side to that is, why are we going through a billing process change when we're looking at selling the service? Why would we incur that cost or that change? We're just going to change over to the new service anyway. I've been through this many times in business. Didn't seem to make any financial or business sense. Two, did see where there's a suit from McLendon-Chisholm for, I guess that's pulling back the offer of them to buy and possibly putting that RFP. Seems like a failure on the board's part to look at that RFP process ahead of time, or taking it to bed with them and possibly incurring costs, legal or otherwise. restrictions have been put on the issuance of any new meters since we can't service the customers that we have today.
Yeah, I'd like it confirmed when the agenda was posted for this meeting. It says on the agenda minutes or the agenda posting that it was posted on the 29th, which would have been Thursday. And the first that I was able to look this up was on Friday, the 30th. If we could get that confirmed when that officially went into effect online, and if it was posted publicly on any bulletin boards, any doors, etc., that'd be helpful for the membership as well.
Yeah, the comment I have is just relative to the item B, the request for proposal. And I think every member of RCH, anybody that's a user of RCH, and I've been for over a decade, knows there's a long documented history of water issues. Infrastructure hasn't kept pace with development. The amount of contracted water that they've received, RCH receives from the city of Rockwall is unchanged for 15, 16 years. And so we know the water restrictions that are in place now are not due to a lack of water in North Texas. It's everything to do with the failure of RCH to maintain the right infrastructure, maintain the right contractual relationship. So now we have an RFP and we'll listen, I guess, to a proposal. So before this board agrees to sell the company, I want to make sure the board fully understands its obligations to us as users, the members of RCH, that whatever the suitor is that's going to buy the company better have firm plans in place to address these known shortfalls. All they're doing is moving one problem to a new entity, an entity that will be unknown to us and what our relationship is. And I think that RCH was set up nobly back in a long time ago now to bring water to rural communities in the southern part of the county. Done a great job doing that originally, but just tragically hasn't kept pace with what's going on. So before any sale's done, just make sure that that company that's you're going to agree to sell to is going to be able to solve the problems. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm kind of new to this, but looking at this company, RCH, being sold to somebody else for this RFP, I don't have a clear idea what you guys' assets and liabilities are and your obligations, and I'm hoping that disclosure has been made public and to these folks with the RFP, so we don't find ourselves in more litigation after the fact when they find out the bank's dry and we've got more liabilities than was disclosed. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm going to follow up with some of the other on payment methods. Using the Dropbox to put payments in. Nothing had payments in there since May, June, so nothing's cleared. So where are the payments at? Because they're telling me now that they're going to start reading the meters and they're going to give us a bill. If they hadn't cashed any of my checks yet in there, what kind of bill am I going to get?
I've just got a couple of follow-up questions. The first one is definitely about administration. We have mentioned in one of the recent emails that there's supposed to be a minimum payment, maybe some more communication on what that will look like to our users. And then the second one is for those presenters today that we're hearing about the forward thinking. What are the plans for negotiating new contracts? What are the plans for mitigation? Let's just be really clear about that today.
Anybody else?
So, say, last year at the meeting that we had at RCH, the thought was put across that we wanted to get water from Terrell and start a process that was gonna take 2 years, and there was gonna be a water tower, and got the place for the water tower and everything. Now we're a year down the road, and none of that has been done, so did nothing happen, or the communication is not real good as to you guys keeping us up to date on what progress has been made, and I don't think that's what it does. And I would really like it if there were introductions. I have no idea who anybody is up there. Just a thought.
My name is Devin Ferris, with A&B Water and Utilities. We submitted a bid on the 29th to purchase RCH. We were under the understanding that the board passed a motion to extend the bid deadline, so we submitted a bid on the 29th. It was acknowledged by Mr. Naylor. I'm not sure if he's here or where he's at, but we were told yesterday that we got our bid in past the deadline. It was a bid where we were going to escrow $6.5 million into an account to draw from for improvements in the water system to bring it into compliance and improve the infrastructure. We'd like for the board to use their power to be able to consider that offer or make a motion to be able to do so, and for our proposal to be considered with the rest of the RFP presenters. So anyhow, again, Devin Ferris, A&B Water. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Dave, I don't know if this is the time, but Nicholas Whitley with Northwest Natural Water. We are one of the companies that submitted a bid for this system. We have a long history in utility business, 165 years. This is what we do. We invest in communities, and we're excited about the opportunity to work with you all here. If there's another time that we go into more detail about the proposal or about my company, happy to do that, but we're here for that and for questions as well.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I'll bring the member comments to a close. And that brings us to the president's report, so I'll take advantage of this to kind of give you a little bit of update of where we are. Ma'am, to your point, I'm David Naylor, I'm the board president.
Warren Hodges.
Pullen. Steve Hatfield. So that's this is your board, and it's an honor to be served with the membership. Kind of like to address really three main topics, if you will. First, talk about the billing, talk about the water restrictions, and then I'll talk a little bit about the RFP. I'll turn the RFP over a little bit later here in the program. As far as the billing is concerned, the meters were read last week, and we're hoping to get bills out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I will remind folks that this situation was brought on by an unexpected and really an unexplained resignation of HCO services, and so we're working through that. Ironically, it was after we talked about and we actually engaged an accounting firm to do an audit, but we're working through that process and doing what we can with that. We're certainly conscientious to the cost. I'll also remind people, as far as payments, there is a drop box at the city limits, city hall, McLendon-Chisholm, but RCH also has a PO box now, and you can find that on the website, and you can mail your checks in there. All the checks that have been sent will be cashed, and that credit will be applied to your account, whatever it turns out to be. And just again, as a reminder, last month the board did authorize. We'll work with people who are needing some time to pay that, recognizing that it's going to be a multi-month billing. So we'll work with people, and we certainly understand the challenges. That was not our choice, but we're working through with the hand that we're dealt. As far as water restrictions, first off, let me just thank the membership. We hit our contract limit of 2.1 million gallons, and we sent out the alert, and the membership responded. And the conservation was great. It dropped back the very next day to below 2, and we're actually been around 1.7 million gallons per day the last couple of days. Those actually are being posted on the website, so you can see the charts being updated. Again, appreciate that. On the agenda today is talking about stage 4, but with the response, we've actually, and Tyler, our engineer, is here, and we'll address this later, but we actually think we can take, there's no need to go to stage 4 at this time, so we'll delay that. We got an alternative solution that I think will actually work. We want people to be able to water the yards and certainly take care of the pools and do what they need to do during this hot summer. So we'll work with that, and if we run into this situation again, we'll probably follow a very similar procedure where we'll issue an alert, and if the member response is not sufficient, then we will go to stage 4 at that time. But the issue is not necessarily the drought. The issue is our contractual limits from Rockwall and what they will supply to us. So that's what we're trying to work through. As far as the short-term solution and long-term solution, we're still working with Blackland Water and City of Rockwall on interconnection. That's over here by High Point. Probably best case scenario is mid-August for that to be in place. It still requires certain approvals, and we're doing what we can to try to get that in place. Long term, we're still looking through all that, but back in May, we authorized Tyler to do a system hydraulic study to look to see where the system has needs and where would it make the most sense to add facilities to meet our growing requirements. So we're in that process. We're trying to look for what makes sense, and that's part of the delay with the water tower. As far as the RFP is concerned, what's interesting about RCH is we have folks that live inside the McLendon-Chisholm city limits. We have folks that live inside the McLendon-Chisholm ETJ, and then we have folks that live outside of the ETJ. And so one of the things that's really critical for the board is to do something that's fair and equal for all of the members, not just a certain subset. And so that's the challenge that we have. McLendon-Chisholm did provide us with a contract. It was really not an offer, it was just a contract. There could not be any negotiations with that. And I think one of the challenges is when the city decides to litigate against RCH, it certainly puts a damper on any type of negotiations. So we're still trying to work through all that. In talking with our legal counsel and amongst the board, we felt that what would be best is to issue an open request for proposal against the RFP. This gives an open process. It gives a way for us to see what else is out there and bring that to the membership. And so as we present today, one of the things we're trying to do is balance that transparency with the confidentiality of the bids. So to the extent that we would much rather have all this discussion out here in the open as opposed to back in exec sessions, we're going to try to have that as best we can. There may be some of the details of specific proposals that we simply won't be able to address in order to not compromise our negotiating position. So if you understand that, I appreciate some of that discussion there. So with that, that's all of my comments, and that will move us then to approval and ratification to move to stage 4. So Tyler, I don't know if you want to, if you have any comments on.
I think you're exactly right. We asked for conservation and we got it, so thank you very much. This isn't really controlled by drought, this is controlled by the amount of water we can get from Rockwall. So, although you're seeing the lakes up, we're asking for conservation, but that's because of our amount that we're getting from Rockwall, and when they cut us off, then that's when we have problems in the system. And as you know, that's 2.1, and we're sitting at like 1.8 MGD right now. So we have, when it started getting up to like 1 point something, no, 2 point something, we started getting very, very nervous and started talking about stage 4. We asked for conservation, came down, we're now at 1.8, so we're okay, I think. And I don't think, we don't want to go to stage 4. That's pretty restrictive, and we're trying not to do that. So I think the system has responded with conservation, and I think we kind of hold our own right now where we are, with the understanding if the usage cranks back up to 2, then we kick it into really extreme measures of rationing. You want to talk about the water, Dave?
Yeah, it's fine. Sure.
Okay. It really helps, and you really tell the impact of the usage due to irrigation. So we were going to propose kind of spreading out the irrigation based on addresses, and maybe where everybody gets their water maybe twice a week or something based on addresses, and spread out the the irrigation throughout the system where everybody's not accidentally watering every day, because you don't really know when your neighbors watering. Maybe you notice the sprinklers are all going off at the same time. But if that could be spread out on different days, different times, it actually makes the system run better. If everybody went down to the bank and got their money out at one time, it'd be pretty terrible. Water system's kind of like that too. We have water, but we need to spread it out so we have it for everybody whenever they want it. So I think David has a proposal on different addresses and the numbers. I thought that was a pretty good idea.
All right, so, and we can put this on the website so people can see it, but the idea is break addresses up into 3 groups. So if your address ends 1, 2, or 3, Mondays and Thursdays. If your address is 4, 5, 6, Tuesdays and Fridays, and then 7, 8, 9, and 0 is Wednesdays and Saturdays. So the idea is hopefully that spreads that out. If that's acceptable to the board, we'll remove the alert, we'll post that, and then if we need to go to, if that doesn't work, we'll go back to the process that we have, we'll issue an alert, and then potentially go to stage 4, if conservation isn't there.
Can we continue to ask questions? Maybe, kind of figure out, or is that all closed?
It's closed, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Could you repeat the days and the numbers, please?
So the addresses that end in 1, 2, and 3 would water on Mondays and Thursdays. Addresses ending in 4, 5, and 6 will be Tuesdays and Fridays. And then 7, 8, 9, and 0, Wednesdays and Saturdays. And we'll post this on the website.
Thank you.
If that's acceptable, then I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you. Second.
All right, I got a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. All right, that leads us to our presentation of the bidders, and before the bidders are introduced, or the proposals are introduced, Tyler's going to take care of this section, and as you recall, last time we authorized Tyler to do an independent analysis of the RFP, to give us his opinions and his viewpoints. Tyler, just again for background, is an outside engineer. He actually also does engineering for both High Point and Blackland. We retained him also to help us on the Highway 205 stuff, as well as the hydraulic study that he's done. So he generally knows what he's talking about. So, Tyler, I'm gonna give it to you.
What do you want to do about the
Evening or afternoon. My name is Tyler Hendrickson. I work for a company called Velvin and Weeks Engineering, and we're located in Athens. Can everybody hear? I see you're holding up your hands. Can you hear okay?
Now I can.
Okay. My volume all right? Okay. I generally can't hear, so we'll talk about it. So what we've proposed is a sale of the water system. That's the weird thing, right? You don't really hear that coming up. It's becoming a more common thing to happen. And RCH, High Point, Blackland, Cash. They're WSCs, they're water supply corporations, they're High Point, Cash, they're special utility districts. Basically, it is a public entity. You know, WSC is a private, not-for-profit. A SUD is a public, not-for-profit. Basically the same thing. It's a water company. It's a business that's in the business to sell water. Sometimes they make water. Sometimes they just resell water. But it's a public company. It's owned by its members. And there's little differences between a WSC and a SUD. You know, sometimes a WSC becomes a SUD. Anyway, I'm getting in the weeds. But it's becoming more popular for a WSC or a SUD to sell its system to what's called an IOU. That's an investor-owned utility. And they're in the business of making money, and they have profits, and they're regulated by the Texas Public Utility Commission, and really heavily regulated. They don't let them make too much money, but they have to make enough money to put back into the system, but they limit their profits. If you really knew the regulations involved in that, I don't know if anybody would really jump into that business, but you know, there are people in that business, quite a few. So you don't hear about that much. Actually, when H2O resigned and we were left with lack of an operator in Blackland, we got Blackland to kind of run the system for a while. That lasted a while, and Rob with Blackland is still involved in operations, and I reached out to Cash to help also run the system. So, you know, Rob with Blackland and Cash is now running RCH temporarily. But also recommended, hey, let's talk with Aqua. Now, Aqua is a client of mine, and they're an IOU, investor-owned utility, and they own a lot of little systems all over the place. And they acquire systems. I actually had a client that was a WSC that had a lot of improvements they had to do, a lot of problems with a small utility, and I suggested they be bought by Aqua, and they pursued that, and that worked out. Aqua bought them. So that's one of Aqua's systems now. So I've seen it kind of happen, and so I didn't really suggest Aqua with them that in mind. It was what the thought was, well, maybe Aqua would come in and kind of run it, but Aqua doesn't. They run the systems they own. They're not really. You got two kind of companies that run a water system. You got like H2O is a contract operating company. You hire them to come run your company. Well, it's still member owned. It's still a WSC. Or you have something like an investor-owned utility that they own the system and they run it too. So there's different two kinds. Anyway, we sent out a proposal to different companies that have to get proposals to buy the system. And there's an offer, which they make. They commit money to revenues, and I think somebody had a real good question about, do they know the revenues? See, each one of these people have been to the pump station. You know, we've had good conversations about the supply from Rockwall. There's been a kick and fire period where they came out and met with Rockwall, they talked to Blackland, really blunt conversations about the supply from Rockwall and future needs of the system, you know, get into North Texas, really, really blunt conversation. Really good inspections of the pump station. So, you know, that's been, nothing's been hidden, it's all very wide open. They're aware of the H2O and everything, they're aware of everything. So hopefully nothing's been hidden. Now, and I always want to make this, what does this mean for y'all? Okay, so if we ever get too far away and if someone says, what does this mean for me? You know, that's what I want this to be about. What does this mean for everybody that gets a water bill, everybody that's an owner of RCH, because that's what this should be about. What does this mean for y'all? And I think what I've looked at, and what Rob and I talk every day about the usage, is what's going on today, and let's do the best we can today for the water quality and keep the pressure up. And we see this as community service, not politics. So let's keep the system running. So let's meet today's needs, which is keep the system on and keeping it running every day. That's today's problem. If we can get past today's problem, tomorrow's problem, then there's things to decide later. But you got to have boots on the ground right now, today. And the first day Rob took over, he helped. There would be a really bad thing that was going to happen, and we ran out of water the first day after H2O quit, and then Rob was there. He realized it was really Rob and Rockwall help the system from bouncing. Hey, good rock. Anyway, so as I look at it, as evaluating these proposers, and we had three. We had Aqua was one of them. We got Troy Hill from Aqua, and another one is Northwest National. We have Nick Whitby. Okay, and we had a third one, A&B Water. You know, might have been late. I thought they were late. We all discussed they were late, so they really hadn't been considered. They can or can't be, but kind of everybody's call. They said it was my call. If you'd like to be have a little, included in a little speech, okay? What my thought was, we would have them all come up and give like a little 5-minute talk on, their company, if that's kind of what everybody, if that sounds good. Now, just to discuss how this might work, without me being too wordy, so I don't see the board making, I see today making a decision on the proposers, and the board saying, oh, very interesting. And then we kind of enter into a phase where we're in negotiations and talks with that one person. And so I don't see the board voting right now, hey, this is going to happen. But if we vote this is going to happen, sometime later we're still kicking tires with a person. If we reach an agreement, then they come in, they become the operator of the system, kind of in this interim phase. They're the operator that send bills, read me, all this stuff. And they're the operator. And then we're working on converting the system, and there has to be a vote, so that has to happen. And whoever's the winning proposer, they have vested interest in that vote passing. So there's going to be a period of community involvement, talks, information, all this stuff going on. Make sure everybody kind of understands what this is going to look like. And then there's a vote, and we vote to see if it happens. And along the lines of what this means to you, there's an offer, and this could mean that, all in a legal way, that this isn't money that should be divided up amongst the board members or the engineer, unfortunately. So, but this, these are members of the corporation, and as members, they get one share at 2,600 meters. So they get equal share of everybody. So this could mean people will get a check. Now you might say, well, that's cool. How much? I don't know. That would get yet to be worked out with the lawyers in a very legal way. So that's what this could mean. So sometimes when a IUB buys a system, people get paid. That's cool. But you're going to ask how much, and the answer is that would be yet to be worked out.
You said, I just want clarification, you said there'd be a vote. Is that a vote amongst the members?
Yes.
Okay. I did it.
Sometimes
the
they
board of directors, just to be clear.
Well, the board of directors kind of vote to make this, it's like, yeah, we like that guy, we want that company. They vote in that way. But the membership votes to make that happen. And if the membership says, no, we don't want that to happen, well, it doesn't happen. So, the membership gets the final say, as the way it should be.
Thank you.
Good question.
The voting, all discuss the voting pieces.
What?
All discuss the voting to happen.
Right. Did you have something?
No, I just wanted to be sure that everybody understood what you said, that the finalized handover will not take place until everybody who owns the meter votes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm a representative, so, I'm a consultant, so is there a timeline, for these other proposals, on what we're gonna do for infrastructure, storage wise? They're gonna have, we're required to have some storage per meter. Okay, so, and also say, are they gonna, approach the city of Rockwall, to amend that contract? So, and I'm just under the assumption that the contract, you guys are limited to your connections. Is that correct? Okay, so.
And volume. Yeah.
In volume, okay. What was the volume of the contract, if you can answer that?
I'm sorry?
Did they give you a volume? Or?
Yeah, 2.1.
Okay.
And a number of connections which has been blown over. So,
Okay, so legally, how can you do that, you know, go over, you know, what they, you know, what the city requires because.
Good point.
So, I'm an operator. I've been doing this for 25 years. I grew up in the business. I'm not down to anybody. I see this all the time. You know, I run a system that was in trouble. I've got it back up and running. So I'm just trying to figure out, you know,
Right.
you know, what the whole reasoning is.
At some time in the past, and I've been the engineer for months, so at some point in the past, developers asked for service and that was approved, and there should have been a timeout, and there wasn't. And there was a plan to get on to North Texas. The plan wasn't really pursued as it should have been, so that's kind of got us to where we are right now.
Well, I do know there are some systems, you know, because the system I run, I know there's systems around me that they're establishing, you know, resolutions to, you know, issue meters, you know, on a case-by-case basis. Because, you know, everybody, you know, everybody's having issues with the growth and, you know, and they keep up with storage.
Right.
So it's sort of playing in place with the other proposals.
Okay, sorry, we need to get to the presentation, but along those lines, I think someone else asked, and this, I'll stop talking, about, we've kind of put a moratorium on new meters. Some people that already asked for meters, like with H2O months ago and paid their deposits, those meters are being set. People that haven't made deposits, haven't, you know, made requests, you know, those are kind of being put off till after we get past the summer. So we're kind of giving out meters very hesitantly. So I think someone had said that, so I think addressed it. Anyway, what I think we do is just start with Aqua based on
Excuse me, before you went further, without being redundant, you just said they're kind of being put on. Is there a moratorium on current meters right now being supplied? You just said
any new meters, we're asking them to, hey, unless it's a big urgency, we'd rather set your meter in a couple of months. So we've got a moratorium right now. But if it's somebody that already said, hey, I got my deposit in 3 months ago, then we're having to set that meter. So you might see a meter being set, and that's why.
I was just talking about future, while all this stuff is discussed.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. And while we're in droughts, you know, we need to be very careful about giving out new meters because of that reason. All right, but
Sorry, but we had this same discussion last year. And
You're right.
the meters were, so as soon
You're
as
exactly
the
right.
droughts over and the usage goes down, you get more meters and you know next year's gonna be worse.
it's
So-
going to be worse. And the real terrible meeting last year, I know there was that same meeting happened 2 or 3 times 4 or 5 years ago. So that same meeting was repeated.
It's been going on 25 years.
You're not wrong.
Sorry.
You're absolutely right.
On the three offers you said you had, three? I don't remember nothing.
Yeah.
Well, maybe how many was it?
It was really 2. One was we considered maybe late.
Well, we made an offer, you need to look at it. But if we're gonna see all 3 of these offers, y'all just pick. Because I have no confidence in this board to pick anything.
Okay, well that's why they hired me. I look better. We're trying to keep the value of their offer confidential. And really, it's the value is not, I mean, yeah, it's money, but we're trying to keep that value confidential amongst the proposals. Yes, sir.
Value is confidential, it's fine. We still need to look at the 3 companies.
That's what's about to happen. Yeah.
In some of the past board meetings, when the question of meter installations, there's a broader question of, and I got the impression that there's contracts or obligations to developers that could be much higher than what the current meter new installations are. Somebody comes in and says, I'm going to build 2,000 homes. The board, somebody in the past, it says, we'll provide those 2,000. We may only be talking about 500 today. So my question, and I didn't get a good warm feeling that we knew what that bigger commit number was or is with the developers that are in the pipeline around the community.
Sorry, I'm gonna cut this off.
I agree.
Just, we need
We're
to
getting
make the
to it.
agenda,
Okay.
constantly closed, people get a chance to comment on it, after
Sure.
their vote, so let's turn it.
All right, so first I'm gonna kick it off to Troy from Aqua. Do we want to ask the other ones to step out, or just let them go? I bet. Just hit it.
Well, we can ask them to
Let's ask them.
Okay. Okay. A and B, if y'all want to step out too.
There's a bench back in there that y'all can sit at where it's air conditioned.
Okay.
And it's really cool.
That's helpful. All right, thank you.
I'm for making them west side. That's what I'm.
Let's go outside. We'll sweat it out.
Well, hello everyone, and I am with Aqua, Texas. I am Business Development Director for the state of Texas. I got to tell you a funny story. I'm also an ex-mayor. I did a debate, and we had people step outside. So one of my opponents had his wife inside and would relay the information to my opponent. So never say never, as they say, right? Well, listen, I appreciate your time and your consideration for being here. This is more than my city of 80,000 probably ever got in a council meeting. So, it says how much you care about your community. And we would love to be a part of it. So first of all, who are we, right? So Aqua is part of an umbrella company called Essential Utilities. We are 130 years old. We started as a water company in Pennsylvania. We're still based in Pennsylvania today. We service 10 states and over 3 million people today. We are the second largest investor-owned utility. In Texas, we got our entry into Texas by acquiring other companies' assets in Texas. So we buy systems that are in terrible shape, and we buy systems that are in good shape. And if they're in terrible shape, we spend money to bring them up to speed on where they should be. In this area, we have a regional office in Fort Worth. In other areas, we've got one in Houston, one in Austin, one in San Antonio. We have a lot of systems in East Texas, which is where we know Tyler from. And I think some of the questions that you all had are really why we would be a good choice for you guys. Number one, T. Boone Pickens said, water is the new oil. Nobody has enough, especially for the amount of people that we have moving to Texas, right? My city outside of Austin faced severe shortages, and the availability of water is the key looking forward, right? So why Aqua, right? Well, number one, we have a market cap of $13 billion. Why is that important? We have the money to spend, right? So we spend money on systems and bring them up to speed or finding water. That could be finding surface water, which is lakes, rivers, or groundwater, which is everything beneath us. So we only have those two sources available in Texas, right? So looking forward, we came in, we were obviously very interested in this area and becoming a partner with you guys. And we did bring our operations team in to look at the system. The system's in good shape today. The equipment's in good shape. Availability of water is probably the biggest question mark, right? I had discussions with the city of Rockwall, so I have been assured that they're not going to cut anybody off, that the 2.1 is going to be available going forward. So how do we get additional sources of water? Well, I've had conversations with other entities too. They're making infrastructure improvements. Those are probably a year and a half away, year and a half, 2 years away. If we're chosen, we can help speed that up. We believe that we're the right company because we have the capital spend, we have the expertise that we can find those water sources, whether they're surface water sources or potentially in the future groundwater sources. And we need to look at both. We drill wells everywhere. We've got 400 systems in Texas. We have a team of hydrologists that we use so we can find within the aquifer the best places to drill for water, where the water's going to be. We don't just go out and start drilling hoping that we find it. So availability of resources, not only money-wise and capital, but expertise. What I found out as mayor is that, look, most people have a vested interest in whatever they're telling you. So if you go to somebody and you say, hey, what's the best source, of water, and they say surface water, it could be a company that does piping, or that does floating docks. Other people have a vested interest in laying pipe, so it could be companies that are drilling wells. Thing that I would say about us is we draw expertise from people that are ex-city managers, city engineers, state engineers. I can tell you from my expertise, I would put our people in Texas up against anybody else. And I will tell you the availability of water is, again, the key thing for all the growth that we are seeing everywhere. We're talking to cities like Odessa that doesn't have water, right? They have oil. Sometimes oil in the water, but not enough water. So finding water is absolutely essential. So we have the money, we have the expertise. We also, I want to address the rates. We are a for-profit company. And let me tell you, how we make money is efficiencies. We believe that we can build systems for less money using economies of scale. So we buy thousands of meters as a company, right? We buy thousands of hydrants, every single thing involved in pump stations, lift stations. So economies of scale mean we can usually build them probably 20-25% less than most municipalities, MUDs, or water supply districts, number one. And we believe that we have the expertise to run them efficiently, number two. So what would we do with rates? Number one, we've said that we would adopt your current rates till at least 2027. So we factored in a growth factor of like 7% based on historical averages. You do have a lot of people moving in. We continue to have people moving in. So we've got to look at growth in the future. But what we are asking for today is approval from the board to negotiate an asset purchase agreement. So we would look at rates beyond 2026. That would be the earliest. But there's a couple things involved. Number one, we would negotiate them out to 10 years. Number two, any rates beyond that go up, you've got an advocate called the Public Utility Commission that is an advocate for consumers that if a company like ours wants an increase, they have to go and they have to plead their case. So we're going to have to say, okay, we just built a new, water tower and it costs blah, 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 and we put in the meters and, we did piping or we drilled another well, and this is what we think that we need to cover that cost, right? And then the PUC would make the final decision, right? So even though we are a for-profit company, we are heavily regulated, and we can't just go in and raise rates, even if we wanted to. Which in this case, we've agreed that there wouldn't be any increases till 2027, till the January, that could be the earliest. And again, that's gonna depend on, you know, availability of water, where we have to go to source water, what we have to do to source water. We have projected, you know, a new storage tower to help the water pressure in certain areas. So some of you that might be affected by that, we have a plan to address that. And then meters, obviously, you know, we use smart meters, so very technologically advanced. We have a 24/7 customer service center. It's our people. So you can get answers at any time. You can access your bill and keep up with conservation, what it was like the month before. You can do that by app. And the app would also let you know of any notices, any boil water notices or any, you know, some contractor hit a pipe, that kind of thing. So I think we would be an excellent choice for you guys. Look, I've been on the city side of it and seen even within cities, and I'll tell you, I work with cities every single day. You know, cities are not keeping up. The legislature right now is contemplating diverting $3 billion to water infrastructure, and it won't scratch the surface. They do not have the money to do it. So, look, I mean, companies like ours are going to have to be part of that solution going forward, and I think the state knows that. So, that's all I've got for today. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Do we want to have them all at the questions at the end for everybody, or just individually? Because I think we'll have the same questions over and over. What do y'all?
I don't mind answering them.
Yeah.
Assuming you take over the water, let's say that happens today, what's the very first thing you're gonna do with the bridge plan? What is the first move your company will make?
Well, number one, we have a team that would come in and start running it, number one, so Blackland back in. But as far as finding water, well, I've already started actually. So I've had conversations with other potential suppliers. Even though we have been in a drought, you gotta remember that, you know, the water authorities are in the business of selling water. So there is water out there. The question is, where is it at? How hard is it to get to? How long is it going to take? Again, we have been assured that the city of Rockwall is not going to cut off that water supply. I understand.
What's the first thing you're going to do?
I think what he wants to know is the first thing that we'd have any of them do.
Excuse me, you're interrupting me.
I was just going to answer the question.
There's one major supplier here, and y'all talk to North Texas. That's all.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Okay. That's the right answer. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we talked to many on
I understand that, but maybe we all know who the big guy is here.
800-pound gorilla. Yes, sir.
Will North Texas negotiate for a wholesale agreement with Aqua?
I can't say that today. I can tell you, we have talked to entities that are confident, but we don't own the system. I mean, they're not going to do that until we own the system.
Does Aqua have the existing standing contracts with North Texas for wholesale?
I do not believe today that we did. We just acquired a system that's not that far from here, Southern Oaks, but they're not purchasing water from them. Yes, sir.
As you build your rates and you look at your system, do you build them based on the system total? Do you have constant rates? Or, in other words, let's say there's two cities. Is your approach, is Aqua's approach to maintain the same rates in all cities? Other utilities that are statewide maintain system rates across their entire system. My question is how do you build your rates? How would you build them for the RCH system?
Yeah.
Compared to other systems you use?
Well, we do have consolidated rates for North Texas, right? But I would say that in this case, we would negotiate the rates with you guys. Number one, again, we've already said that we would just adopt your current rates till the end of 2026. After that, we would negotiate in this process what those would be the next, going out 10 years, right? Beyond that, it has a lot to do with capital. He would probably not move to those consolidated rates. Consolidators and everybody else's cost. You know what I mean? That necessarily isn't always good. And in y'all's situation, it would not be advantageous.
Well, this is
Yep.
guys, I can see puddles falling off.
Yes, sir.
Publicly traded, right? You guys are a publicly
Yes.
traded company. And then the second question is then, since multi-state, so what's the corporate structure and how does Texas fit into that corporate structure?
The parent company is Essential Utilities. Aqua is the original part of the company. We're the original company. So all we do is water and wastewater. We bought a gas company last year in the Midwest, hence the change of the Essential Utilities name, and now we're into a bigger umbrella. But we're utilities, that's all we do, and primarily water and wastewater. Aqua Texas came about when we acquired Aqua Source. It was a water supply company, and then we started acquiring systems around the state.
Oh, you're right.
I think it's fine.
That's all.
Do you keep the companies that you purchase?
Absolutely.
You don't later sell them?
What could you do in the next 6 months to improve our water situation over the 2.1 million?
That's really kind of low.
It is, and I think the availability of water is the key, right? So how can we get it? You know, look, I mean, the mayor of one of my surrounding cities said it best. If you can have other people pay for your infrastructure, it makes total sense to sell water. Well, that makes sense for cities, that makes sense for water supply corporations. They're in the business to sell water. There are a lot of people in the business who sell water. We need to find the ones that have availability, and maybe we do some shared cost in accessing some of those sources that are available. It's not just, you know, one or two around here. You know, so, you know, we know that 2.1 is there. First thing I do, let's get additional water from somebody.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. And again, if you had a question, maybe you can throw it into the next guy. I think we were going to ask A and D. I'm going to ask Balkum for next.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
The idea is that maybe we try to keep this down to 10 minutes, so we're not here 10 minutes. And then a few questions. Got passed out.
I haven't fallen over yet.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Devin Ferris, A&B Water and Utilities. We submitted an offer, I guess after the deadline, as I mentioned a while ago. I won't say the amount again. I know that you guys want to keep that confidential. I respect that. But I will say that our offer was one that wasn't a direct purchase. It was an offer that we made where we'd be putting the funds into an escrow account to use to make upgrades on the system versus an outright purchase. I know, as I mentioned earlier, the structure, right now you guys are a water supply company owned by the members. We would be a private company that's stepping in to purchase the system. And would certainly want to make a little bit of money, but our offer's backed by a private investor who has a vested interest in this community and kind of sent us as an agent to speak on behalf of kind of what our plans would be, and hope you guys will consider that. So I guess first and foremost, our plans would be to meet with the board, the members, figure out what the immediate needs are. That way we can develop an infrastructure plan and background in water utilities, purchased a company that does water maintenance or water system maintenance, drill water wells, pull water wells, put new infrastructure in for neighborhoods. Basically turnkey water system maintenance and construction. So I have the experience to be able to, and the crews to be able to make these improvements and do all the construction to add groundwater storage tanks where needed, to work on the lines, to get the system into compliance, and have a operator contracted that has experience managing these types of systems and whipping them into shape that we will be using for RCH. So didn't prepare a long drawn out presentation. Honestly, didn't even know if we'd get a chance to speak, like I said, because it was late. But be happy to answer any questions you guys can to the extent I have answers to them.
Yeah, so you said you're backed by an investor that has a vested interest in this community. Can you elaborate on that a little more, please? What their tie is to the community?
They're a large landholder.
Excuse me?
A large landholder.
And what's the intention with the organization? Is it to revitalize it, package it up, and sell it? What kind of an investment structure do they have? And what are they looking for in terms of an ROI?
They're looking. They're looking to strictly. They have the interest of the system at heart, as to the extent it benefits their land and having connections available for their land into the future if they decide to develop it.
But again, what's their long-term plans for one organization?
It's just to continue to own it and use the dollars to upgrade it as needed and make sure that they have water for their system. I mean, they have a lot of money, and I mean, they just want to be able to use, as they develop their land in the lots or whatever it may be, they want to make sure that they have adequate water supply.
They're not creating a utility business. This is just purely a service business, is what I'm saying.
That's right. And this lady.
So my question is in relation to the investment as well. The way that your funds are coming in is the design that the membership retains control, the board stays in place, but you guys are our financier, and the vested interest in the financing is that they want to see that meters continue to be available and volume continues to be available. Is that really the summary of what you're saying? That's what I'm taking.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, we would figure out ways to increase capacity, whether it be using, making relationships with adjacent water supply companies or drilling wells and adding tanks, whatever it may be. That would be how the funds are primarily used in making upgrades to bring the system into compliance.
I appreciate the brevity of your presentation. However, you have not talked about anything on what your company can provide in terms of how fast you can get to billing, whether you have billing systems in place now, or you can spin that up. Do you have a call center? Do you have processes and stuff like that in place currently? And if so, how many other water companies are you running? You said you're with A&B and you're in the business, but you haven't enumerated on anything other than we have money in an escrow account. You know, I've got money in the bank too, so. And, you know, we start our own company, we could do it.
Yeah,
the policy would be the money.
It's a fair question. So, we have, like I said, we manage and maintain rural water systems. We don't own a rural water system. The group that I'm representing doesn't own a rural water system. But as I said, we've been in the business of maintaining those water systems for years. 250 systems in North Texas. Neighborhoods of 100 to 1,000 homes. And have staff and the equipment to be able to do that. And this system is not out of the realm of our.
You mostly deal with Weldon?
We deal with private. We deal with special utility districts, water supply companies, privately owned, typically. And then as far as the billing goes, you know, we don't have a call center. We would use My Rural Water and outsource to Flex. We'd just outsource that. We don't have an internal software.
Okay, we good? All right, let's move on to the definition.
Which representative was the latest of Lowell?
I'm sorry.
Was he the latest of Lowell?
Yes.
And after we'll have, y'all are learning a lot. This is very interesting. After we'll have a better open this. Yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming in and hearing about our company and our proposal. So, my name is Nick Whitley. I look after the acquisitions for Northwest Natural Water. We're based in Oregon. We have operations in 5 states, altogether about 68,000 connections across the country. Deanna is our general manager for the Texas subsidiary. And Deanna, how many systems, connections?
38 systems and 6,000 connections.
So mostly in the Houston metro area. We did just move into the Beaumont area. We're looking at San Antonio as well. So our parent company is Northwest Natural Holdings. We are a 165-year-old company, primarily a gas LDC, so we support the natural gas services for the greater Portland area and Southwest Washington. About 2.5 million customers there. We decided about 5 years ago, actually closer to 7 now, that we needed to diversify that business. So, so we looked at water as a natural extension of what we do, providing infrastructure and resources safely and securely to communities. So over the course of the past 5 years, we've made a number of acquisitions in these different states. We're very focused on Texas. In addition to Arizona, we view it as a place that's growing very strongly. We want to be a part of those communities so we can support the population growth that you're seeing and ensure that you all have water to, for your everyday needs, and you have that reliably. So what we've proposed here is obviously an acquisition of the assets of RCH Water. We do understand that you need someone to operate those assets, and we would be willing to do that from the signing of an agreement to acquire the system. In addition to the utility systems that we own, we have an O&M services business, so we operate water and wastewater services on a contract basis across the country. So we would plan to do something similar here. And then when the acquisition is complete, we would most likely build up the workforce for the utility here and support the community and also look to grow across this area of the state. Is there anything you want to talk about the operations side of things? Or?
No, we've gone into the systems that we purchased and we've looked at capital expenditures that we can do to better the systems, which it sounds like y'all need. And we definitely want to make sure that you have enough water so that you're not running out.
Yeah, so one of the things we'll do when we, the first order of business when we acquire a system, we'll commission an engineering master plan to really understand the pain points and what the capital needs are for the system that we can base a budget on. We do understand at a high level some of those priorities, most notably the source of water itself, whether that's an intertie to a nearby system or drilling more wells. We also prioritize getting technology that helps us operate those utilities efficiently. So, for instance, when we acquired the systems in Beaumont, I think it took about 3 months for us to get automatic meter read in place so we can more quickly read those meters and operate the system. We do a lot of GIS mapping. So it's really about figuring out where the capital needs to be spent and then doing that in very short order to make sure that the system is properly capitalized and has the resources it needs to serve the community. That's kind of the basis of what we do and what we look to do. Are there questions or anything else that I can answer in more detail? Ma'am?
Can you clarify how your company would go about acquiring additional water sources for us?
Sure. So as part of the master plan, we would look to see where the areas available to drill would be, or we would commence negotiations with North Texas to understand how you would tie in and what kind of connection you would need and we would put in place timing to make that project a reality. I think for the next year across our systems, we budgeted about $140 million in capital expenditures. So this would be part of that plan. We would have the capital to develop the water resources.
And when you say tie in to North Texas, do you mean North Texas Municipal Water District? Is
Yes,
that who you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am. Sir?
You mentioned before that you would most likely have local assets here to support the community. What would determine whether you would put people on the ground or not, and what would that look like?
It's really a timing issue. So with the connections you have today and the system size, can certainly support full-time employees. So it would just be a matter of us onboarding those people to our company.
What's the determinant? You said most likely, so it sounds like there's a question there.
I think it's more around timing of that. So yeah, apologies if I misspoke, but the way I look at it is, so our operating assets are in the Houston metro area today. We would, for the period prior to close, which could be about a year because this needs to go through the Public Utility Commission of Texas. So we would operate that on a contract basis until we hire folks for the company. Sure.
As far as billing and call centers and being able to call, is it something that you guys have in-house? Is it something you outsource? What's the availability to get that? And then the second part of the question, what's your plans for the current rates structure?
Sure. So Deanna, do you want to answer the part on the billings?
Yes, we can handle that now. That would not be a problem. I've got all the systems that we purchased recently that are a couple of hours away. They're all of our payments are automated. You can still mail in a check if you want, but everything's automated. It's very, very easy. We have 7 or 8 different ways to pay, and we have 24-hour service if you have a problem to call in.
And the rates, right? So for the immediate future, we adopt your current tariffs. We acquired T&W Water Service 6 years ago.
3 years.
3 years, and we have not been in for a rate case. T&W had not been in one for 20-some years. So it just depends on the capital needs, the money that you spend, but certainly in the near term, we would simply adopt the existing.
Put months on the near term, is that 12 months or 36 months?
It would certainly be a couple of years. And again, it depends on the investment that's needed. If you're looking at a $10 million investment in year 2, we would need to go in for a rate case sooner rather than later. If that much capital didn't need to be spent, or if it was pushed out a decade, then there'd be no reason to go in for a raise.
This gentleman needs that statement.
Sorry. I was trying to understand the scope of your acquisition here. We currently have 2,600 meters.
Yeah.
What do we have contracted today in addition to that you're going to have to provide for as you pull this together?
So we expect there to be a lot of growth. We can only support that growth if we have the water resources and the infrastructure to do that. And when we put together our offer and our projections of what the community would look like, we certainly budgeted for both capital and for future connections.
Could you speak to how many are contracted to be put in place?
I don't.
We don't.
Yeah, I don't have that exact number.
So I was gonna piggyback off of that question earlier about the billing. And you guys, would you be able to do the sewer and the trash all together along with the water?
We don't do trash, and
We do operate our own sewer systems. The current RFP process is for the water, so we haven't looked at that, but certainly it's within that's our bread and butter. So.
But you wouldn't be able to do one bill for all of it?
if we acquired sewer, water and sewer would be on one bill. But if we're just acquiring water, it would just be the water. It's easy to add on to it though.
Sure. I'm assuming you're here that you've studied the RCH system, and since you have, at least preliminarily, what do you estimate the total infrastructure improvement value to be at today?
It's a good question. I think it depends on how you would look at that. From what we see, you could look at a replacement value, a kind of cash flow value. I would put the range somewhere between $5 and $10 million.
I think there was another hand over here.
And you're looking at a year to begin all this because you'd have to go through PUC, is that right?
Yeah, and that's really, so anytime you invest in a utility requires a system to go through that process. But again, we feel comfortable operating in the interim.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What's your ability to tell developers no?
What is our availability?
What's your ability to tell a developer, no, we don't have the infrastructure?
I don't have a problem.
We're good at that.
I'm good at that.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about sewage because about a third of us don't connect to the sewage system, and there's plenty of trash out here.
Yeah,
trash pickup.
Our first priority is making sure that we have the water that we need. It's not growth. I mean, it's interesting because you do see a lot of growth in this area, but we can't do that if we're not supporting the people who are here already. That's the first priority. Sir?
We already know that North Texas Municipal is the primary source of alternative or extra water. Are you implying that you have some connection with them that might be quicker than other ways that we have access to it?
I wouldn't say that, but we are effective in engaging other parties and making sure that we get the resources that are needed. We have a full team of lawyers and financial folks and government employee type people, so I am confident we will be able to work through that pretty quickly.
But no existing connection?
No, sir.
Okay. Does your firm have any outstanding wholesale agreements with anybody across the state, like North Texas?
We certainly do. In Texas,
West Jefferson Parish, we purchase water from them in one of our court author systems.
But we do the same in Arizona. We do the same in Washington State. So it's pretty common.
We just haven't gotten to the level that y'all are using to meet. I mean, we have plenty for demand.
So we know what the situation is today. We're talking about future growth, right? So there's a lot of development going into these areas out here. Where would you guys stand, or how would you handle a developer that wants to develop a 900-acre parcel with 2,000 homes? Would you be willing to say, no, we can't supply water, or would we do what this past board has done, just continue to issue water meters?
No, we don't operate.
And the question is, do you have the ability to say no, or will there be the external pressure coming from communities or whatnot?
We're highly regulated by the TCEQ and the PUC, so we can't do that. We have to, if we don't have capacity, we can't sell it.
And I don't mean to be skeptical, but you say that this board didn't do that.
I think the good thing, and you can take some comfort in, is the fact that the industry for investor-owned utilities is so heavily regulated. So everything we do goes through the Public Utilities Commission of Texas.
That's why it
those customers. We don't have the ability to say yes.
And here's something else, from an outsider. You guys might know what we're doing. So, legally, the developer has to apply for service. If he doesn't apply for service, then just telling him no, because you cannot go further than that. So, per PUC, and the same thing is, you have to apply for service, just like you could apply for service. If we don't have the water, simple, then that one residents, will not get water. So capacity. Did you ever hand up yet? This is maybe one more.
Have you ever been denied a rate increase by the PUC?
I'm sorry, sir?
Have you ever been denied a rate increase by the PUC?
It's not denied what they will negotiate.
So the way it works is you go in and you say, this is what I spent in the system, and they approve or deny certain chunks of that. We're good about working with the GDCs across the platforms we operate in all of the states. So we're not going to gold plate something, hoping that we can put it into rates, right? We really want to make sure that every dollar we spend is used and useful, which is the term that they use. So no, we haven't had anything denied, and we work very closely with them to make sure that the investments that we make are used.
Final question. I guess mine would just be maybe a summary question for you guys. You've got 6,000 connections in Houston, 3,000 connections in North Texas if you partner with us. And you say you're looking to grow. So do you see us as an opportunity to branch out into lots of these small water systems in our area? Do you see us as an opportunity to bring value? What makes us special? Why do you want us, and why do you think you'd be a good partner for us?
Yeah, I think there's a unique challenge here, one that we faced in other jurisdictions. We can certainly add value. And we don't have anything in North Texas right now. I would love to be part of the community here and grow from here. This is very attractive because it is a big system. So we can build an office around here. We can build people. And it's, I think we can just be a big help to them. Deanna?
Sure, that's exactly what I was.
Okay. Well, then,
We're going back out to
you want to bring him in and then sit? Okay. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
So real briefly, hello? All right, so we're on agenda item 4D, number 1. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of the process. This is mainly for the board, but we're obviously all here in the church together, so I'm going to do it for everyone. But to just kind of clarify where we are, my name is Kyle Weldon. I'm an attorney with James D. Bradbury. It's a law firm in Fort Worth. We've been retained by RCH to help with this process. Tyler kind of explained some things earlier about where we are, but I just want to kind of bring us all back to what's going to happen the rest of this meeting and in the next couple of months. So we've just heard from all 3 companies that submitted proposals in response to the RFP. And what's going to happen next is Tyler, who has been independently retained by RCH to evaluate all these proposals, is going to give his analysis and his independent recommendation on who RCH should move forward with. He's going to give that to the board. At that point, today, the board is going to make a selection of the proposal that it would like to move forward with. So we've all heard 3 proposals. They're going to select a proposal that we're going to move forward with. At that time, nothing is final or in stone. This is not a complete RCH is being sold to X company. this is going to kickstart a series of events that will happen, some very quickly and some may take a little time. So the first agreement or issue that will happen is the board will enter into an operations and maintenance agreement with this new company, which will address how the system is going to be maintained by this new company. We've heard today that some of the companies are ready to step in tomorrow if they need to operate the system. So the operations, the OMA is going to be the first agreement that will be negotiated and will address and govern how the system is handled. Secondary to that, there will be a negotiation related to a purchase and sale agreement, an asset purchase and sale agreement, which will actually formalize and address how the assets of RCH are going to be sold to this company, to whoever is the selected proposal. At that point, when we have a final agreement that has been negotiated, that agreement will be presented to the board, rather to the members of RCH, to approve that agreement to sell the assets of our RCH. That is when there will be the member feedback, or member opportunity to address whether or not the sale will move forward. Kind of working lockstep with that in parallel to the actual purchase and sale agreement will be a filing and application process with the Public Utility Commission of Texas, which has been mentioned several times today. So that will be a separate part, but kind of working parallel again with the negotiation of the PSA. So again, today the board is going to move forward with selecting a proposal, but nothing again will be signed or finalized or concrete today. And so when Tyler gets up here, he's going to present again. He has reviewed. He is the professional engineer that has reviewed these proposals. He's going to give us his comments, his recommendation, and I encourage the board to ask questions of Tyler regarding these proposals. We've all heard each one of them speak, but I encourage you to ask questions. And again, we've already discussed this, but some of the materials that were submitted as part of the bids have confidential nature in them, so be cognizant of that, please. But with that, I will turn it back over to Tyler to let him give us his thoughts on who to move forward.
Could you take your question first?
Not right now. Thank you.
I think that
Talk to us.
right. Okay. So I'm going to talk and then we can ask questions. And y'all are smart. You've heard people give proposals. Everybody has a point of view, right? You know. And wow, great questions. I mean, y'all really put them through their paces. Maybe some of them weren't as ready as other ones were for those questions. So, great job. But I look at it as who's here, who's going to be able to step in and right now. You know, and come on, there's really no question here. We're kidding each other. So, I mean, we can run through an analysis, but of the three, I mean, you have Rockwall and you have everybody else kind of below them, you know. They're the second biggest water utility in the nation. They have infrastructure here, you know, they have a management office here. They own systems around here. You know, this isn't something I'm trying to get into the business. They're already in the business. You know, I think Northwest had, they said they had acquired 25 acquisitions. Aqua has like almost 400. So, anyway, it is not really in the same category. So, that's my recommendation is that if we proceed with Aqua. Also, they presented a plan on how we move forward in like a year-by-year cost analysis of money that's put into the system, which none of the other ones did. It was very impressive. Also, they're in the kick and tire phase. Their analysis and their evaluation, their discussions with everybody was days long. They really did a great job coming out, talking to everybody, looking at everything way more than anybody else. Anyway, so I can go on and on, but you know that would be my recommendation of all the proposals.
Kyle, I have a question. Did I understand correctly that Aqua said that it would maintain our rates through 2025? Is that correct?
I think it was
27.
Yeah, 26, and I had a great. I think for what everybody is interested in. What does this mean to me? What is my bill? You know. So he said they definitely lock it into I think 2070, and that and then after that, I mean, the reputation that Aqua gets is, you know, they're like statewide rates. The little systems they buy, they're junk. You know, mostly that, you know, somebody can't, why does a normal person sell Aqua? Because they can't afford to fix it, whatever it is. So, and they don't have any money in the bank, they got, you know, it's terrible. So they come in, they get saddled with the statewide rate. That wouldn't happen to us because we got a pretty good system. Now we have some, you know, massive amount of infrastructure that is needed that I think is more closer to 12 million than any other that everybody else was throwing out. But, you know, so our rates wouldn't be really on the Aqua, North Texas Aqua rates, that we would have our own rate structure just for us.
Okay, I have another question.
Please.
If I understand correctly, their biggest challenge coming into RCH is not to upgrade and add to our existing infrastructure, but it is to locate new sources of water. Is that correct?
I'd say that'd be number one. I've had a couple of good conversations with both Northwest and Aqua as far as what, I hate that the man left because I had a good answer to this question, but what was the first thing they would do, you know, and I think that we need to get new, more modern meters installed. You know, that's the day one thing. And how fast can you get that going? You know, I think that's the first thing. And then in parallel to that, we need more water for the system.
I'm just trying to make a point here that our system is not in bad shape physically. That our biggest hurdle that we have here is getting new sources of water, and that seems to be what Aqua is most confident about being able to do, is being able to partner with other water supply corporations to get that accomplished. I agree.
Now, speaking of the condition of the facilities, the pump station should be a showcase. You know, I go there and I look in the base of the water tower, and they have a whole pump. There's nobody else has a whole pump extra, and there's all the extra valves and extra things all lined up. And I take one look at that, I take a look at the pump station, not one cobweb. This is a well-maintained pump station. I mean, say what you say about anybody who was running it. I can look in there in 5 seconds. I go, they love that pump station. They took care of it. So it is. It's a well-maintained system. Yeah.
So Tyler, I mean, I A&D came in, and I think they're new to the game. They didn't seem to have much, hadn't put together a whole lot.
Right. I think mostly they operate systems. They're really new to the buying system.
So they did use Northwest Natural and Aqua. I mean, it sounds like Aqua did a lot more homework on the front end than Northwest Natural did.
So, if you graded it, I'd put Aqua at 100 and put Northwest. It was interesting. I put them at a 50 and then put A&D kind of somewhere below that.
So in terms of proposals, at least we'll probably have at least build more confident. We have more certainty with Aqua versus what we have in Northwest Natural. They still have to do some more. Or it would seem like they would have to do more homework, if you will.
Yes, sir. You got it.
I agree with nearly everything that you just said, but I'm baffled by the comment that you think the most important thing to do is install new meters. How does that help anything with our biggest problem of water shortage?
Well, it wasn't as we install meters and then do it later. It was in conjunction. Day one, you're going to have to get on their water extra needs, which they've really already done. I mean, they've already talked to the neighbors. They've already talked to me many times. So they've really started that process kind of already. But as far as but it takes so long to get that going. So the first thing I think you would see something happen would be the meters. But as far as planning and infrastructure planning, that's what gets kicked off right away is the planning. But as far as what you see happen, you would see the meters happen because that doesn't take a long time to get going. But it takes years to get this other water sources. That's a long-term gig. But that's kind of what I was trying to portray. It's the first thing we saw happen.
So how are you going to provide? I'm sorry.
Okay.
So right now, we're in part of the agenda that's talking about your presentation. I'd like to make sure the board first has anything, and then we can move into the other comments on the votes. Any other? Okay. All right, so let's move into member comments on proposals and,
Good job. Good job keeping us on.
I think you had it, Mr. Bailey.
If you are going to install these meters, we don't have any water, how are you going to provide water for those meters?
The meters doesn't do anything for getting you more water. But it adds, allows you to read the water meters better, more technology, and it cuts down on your metering staff. Ultimately, the system needs more water.
Right.
That is the real problem, and whoever comes in is going to have to handle that.
Once you install these meters, how are you going to keep anybody from using them?
We need to clarify.
No, it's the current.
It's switching from old to smart.
Replacing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is an upgrade. Technology. You get a new TV, you get a new computer.
What does smart mean?
Smart means that you can drive by and each meter sends out a little signal, and your computer's picking up that signal and it's reading it all the time, rather than get out, go over there, read it off, write it down.
There'll still be people out and about.
They'd be driving around instead of stopping.
But when they get to that point of the meters, something will flash.
It'll send out a little- Actually, it's a lot safer to do. It's getting where you have somebody driving down the road, and they get, stopping and getting out of the truck, it's getting you kind of dangerous, actually. So it's also a safety.
Now, all these proposals, all these three companies, it still has the system here run by the board and its members, correct? Or is it that's changed?
Okay, so if the system is bought by an IOU, there won't be a board. Okay, so right now, not in the same way you're a member now, you'd be a customer. Good point. And so right now, you're mad, you come up, you scream at people, and you hope that they'll come back and be on the board, you know. But you have representation. You vote on those people. You don't like what they're saying, you get somebody else to run for the board. I mean, that's the way government works. But with any investor owned, you're a customer. You know, so it's a little bit different deal.
Are all of these IOUs?
They're all IOUs.
They're all IOUs.
Yes. Okay.
So I'll just, again, these are questions about the proposals.
Yeah. Okay. Proposal questions.
Well, if you look at the way Apple's customers are reacting, are their customers satisfied? Have you got a lot of dissatisfied customers? Have you got complaints against their service? Have you looked at that?
I mean, there's pros and cons. These systems that are being taken over, they're being taken over because they're not really being run right. Well, if they're not being run right, they're kind of already mad.
No, I mean the way Apple.
Way after, that would be hard to do to track down people that were how happy they were later on. I'm not hearing any, you know, this was a terrible, and people calling me saying, you know, I'm going to burn your house down or anything, but I haven't really heard. People are going to be mad, people are going to be happy, just like any other day. But overall, people are happy with this, you know, kind of thing that happened. Well, not true.
So if we agree as members to convert over to an IOU run system and therefore become customers and no longer members and forfeit our kind of effective sovereignty, why wouldn't RCH want to transition to City McLendon-Chisholm where there's more accountability with elected officials running a system and a town that we can actually go and represent our complaints to or anything else?
Who's going to represent the complaints?
Individually speaking, you
But
know,
also it's not the same.
well, over a third of us are not within the city limits. And
It's a question I have to the board. I'd rather have sovereignty and represent somebody that I elect than somebody I just writing a check to.
We don't get to elect anybody, so we have no.
You can incorporate anybody.
You'll have no.
Hey, let's just, is that a question related to the proposal, one of those proposals? Or is that just a question?
The question related to the proposal is two things, pardon me. Bylaw 24 in the RCH guidelines prevents RCH from selling to a for-profit institution unless it's otherwise defined in the 501c3 by the IRS. How does the board address that if Block was for-profit?
I'm sorry, I did not catch much of that. is that a question about one of the proposals that was just given, or is that a comment about the bylaw?
I think it was a comment.
Okay.
It was a question. How can we sell to Aqua if they're a for-profit institution?
I think we can address that at a later time. Right now, we are receiving questions about the proposals that were presented. That's a comment that can be made.
But if Aqua's for-profit, we're going to execute this in violation of the bylaws.
We have, your comment is noted. We're going to move on, please. Thank you.
I'm asking this question for the lady that just left.
The one that was sitting over here? Shit, great question.
Yeah. Well, no, the lady that was here.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, she just asked me was, oh my God, I know, right? Is the city of McLendon-Chisholm not in the running for this? Or I think that's what her question was.
They didn't make a proposal for the system. Now that
They're not, they don't think they have to. That was what she said. They don't have to make a proposal because they're the municipality or something like
we
that.
asked for proposals.
The municipalities don't have to.
They didn't offer one. So
But they don't have to.
they didn't offer one. That wasn't brought up. That no one called. No one said, "Hey, we don't have to." There was no communication. We evaluated the proposals that were submitted.
But RCH received a contract, did they not, or an agreement of some sort from the city of McLendon-Chisholm?
Again, McLendon-Chisholm did not submit a proposal. They did not present today. Tyler is just answering questions related to the three proposals that we discussed. So if you have questions about the proposals, please leave those to Tyler. Otherwise, we're going to move forward. Thank you.
Yes.
I believe I heard the attorney say the first step they're going to do is to turn over operations and maintenance to somebody. And then later we're going to get the members to vote on whether that's okay. How does that work? That doesn't make sense.
Well, there's a fee to run the system, that we would contract with Aqua probably, and we would pay them to run the system. If the vote doesn't pass, then they're just more or less a contract operator, and at some point they stop being the contract operator because the vote failed. And at that point, we're looking for a new contract operator, or having another vote, or that continues, and certainly Aqua or whoever has a vested interest in it passing. So if they're elected as the buyer of the system, there'd be community meetings, a lot of questions, a lot of answers, and more kicking tires. But they've already done a great job, Mr. Bailey.
Tyler, if the board approves whichever proposal, that's up to y'all, I guess. At some point, we're gonna vote on that proposal or some process. Will there be a vote to not do anything? Or are we just gonna have to accept whatever this board decides that we gotta accept?
Well, if we move forward with selling the system, then the vote is to sell it to whoever or not. If you want something else to happen, that you contact your board members and said, "Hey, how about a so-and-so?" That's what you would do.
So will there be like a none of the above? Which
We've gotten back off of the service, we're back to the process, so we're pretty cranked out. Now you know what's the proposal.
I think the vote would be a sale or not sale. Okay. A or B.
All right.
Is Aqua the highest bidder out of all three? Do they have the most money to contribute to the system?
I want to be very careful because the offer, A and B said, "Oh, we'll put money in the bank account." Well, Aqua has a cash offer, and the offer from Aqua and Northwest was about the same. And Aqua had not only that, but said, "Hey, we'll dedicate this amount of millions of dollars, I think it's $10 or $12 million, to infrastructure in the system." So it was a much better offer. Also, the system has quite a bit of money, millions of dollars, and that is for us to use for either distribute or for infrastructure. That's not really tied into any of this. Okay, good question.
Tyler, so if I heard your recommendation,
Yeah.
all right. So I'm gonna.
You want to squeeze in? Is it about?
got to
Okay. Sorry.
All right, thank you. So,
Questions, guys?
moving back to The agenda here, selection of bidder, per the recommendation from Tyler, Aqua. Any further comments from the board?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we authorize board president, legal counsel to negotiate and execute an agreement, sale agreement, and operations and approved entity with Aqua.
Alright, so let me ask our attorney, if he kind of combines items 4 and 5. Okay, can we take it separate? So, see if I can ask you to hold that one. I have my large rolls backwards. But, let's do the selection of bidder first, and then take the authorization. So would you make a new motion to select Aqua?
I'll make a motion to select Aqua.
Okay. Second. All right. Got a motion second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. We'll reflect that as unanimous. All right. Now I'll take the second authorization of the board president and legal counsel.
To negotiate and execute agreement for sale of assets and/or operations with approved entity, that entity would be Aqua.
Okay. Okay, good. Got a motion? Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?